Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's green. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart as well as other crypto indicators and macro charts, seeing where we are in this part of the cycle. Let's start off with fear and greed. And right now, crypto still up into greed. However, it has been falling since the peak that it made recently in late November. So if we zoom out even further, something to keep an eye on is if fear and greed keeps making lower highs and lower lows like it did in March, that may mean that we go sideways or see the price go down a little bit just for the next month or so. Going over to this chart, which has put the last two cycles in perspective as well as this cycle, do know that with crypto, there is going to be volatility. And if you can't handle swings of 15% to 40% drops, that type of volatility, crypto might not be for you. So do be patient when these big sell offs happen. That's when you're looking for deals if you believe that the cycle top has not come in yet. We'll get more into that as we take a look at the rainbow chart. If you are buying altcoins or Bitcoin mining stocks, one of the charts you are paying close attention to is Bitcoin dominance. What that means is the overall percent of money that's in crypto that is in Bitcoin. And when there's a rotation out of Bitcoin into those altcoins, into those mining stocks, that is when we see Bitcoin dominance go down and we see altcoins explode in value, some as much as 5x, 10x. But do know you can still see pretty decent gains over time, even now, even before alt season. And as far as how long alt season has lasted, here in 2017, it only lasted about a month. Here in 2021, it only lasted about a month. And whenever your altcoin does those multiples, do know that you have a very short window to take profits before some of these fall off a cliff and the profits leave those altcoins. So do know that if you are in XRP, Doge, whatever, and you have certain price targets, it may only be there for a few weeks and then kaput. So have that in the back of your mind. These tops that we had in March and then recently in November, if you were in any of those altcoins that exploded in value and you were feeling great, then you didn't take profits and now you've seen those correct 20%, 30% or more. All the altcoins correct a lot more than Bitcoin does. Try to remember that feeling and that thought process, because that's what happens at the top in alt season. You have to be ready for that. So you've been tested a couple times recently. You have to be ready to take profits when that Bitcoin dominance is going down. Next, let's go over to the alt season index. And if you want to see this chart, make sure you're clicking on the year tab here. A lot of people don't do that. And right now, as far as the macro alt year index, this is just a higher low. So do look for discounts in altcoins right now in the near term, because if the top is coming in quarter one or quarter four, these might be some of the best deals you can get before an alt season, whenever that takes place. Going over to the rainbow chart, you can see that Bitcoin almost was getting up into one of these orange zones, and right now it has fallen to the bottom of the yellow zone, might even be getting in the green zone. So you can see there, I just rolled it over to the middle of January. If it did get into the green zone, that price range is between roughly 67 to 87,000. We'll take a look at where that falls on the chart. The yellow zone there between 87 and 115, in the orange zone, or the light orange zone, 114 to 147. Something that I've been keeping in mind when I started this channel is talking about where the halving price might be. And I noted, we can zoom out more, but I've talked about this quite a few times, is that every halving, the price of Bitcoin goes up a color band. And that is what happened. The first halving was down here. And then the opposite has happened with the peaks, that This peak was just a little bit above max bubble territory here. It was right in the middle. Last cycle, it was here and at the lower end when it made this was the true high in Bitcoin, is at 69K last cycle. So I've been looking for something in this orange zone for the upcoming bull run or the upcoming peak of this cycle. And if we take a look, just stretch it out to, let's go to March. If we were to get into the orange zone, that could be somewhere around 155K if that were to happen in the near term. Later on, if we go over to quarter 4 of this year, you can see that orange box is around 187K. So close to 200,000. We'll just keep that in the back of our minds. So we'll see what happens with the price of Bitcoin. As far as looking for a top out here, it's because people believe in something called a 4-year cycle. And the peak of Bitcoin last cycle was November 21. 4 years before that, the peak was December 2017. The peak before that was December 2013. So December, 4 years later, December, 4 years later, November, 3 years, 11 months, whatever. Are we going to get another similar 4-year cycle where the top is in, let's just say, quarter 4 of this year? Just something to keep in the back of your mind. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, let's go over to Bitcoin. Now let's take a look at this chart. So Bitcoin, right now you can see a couple red candles been showing up. And we talked about last week how with our buy sell signal indicator, we had that red dot. We had that weekly sell signal. And that's something to watch out for, because whenever Bitcoin gets one of those macro weekly sell signals, you can see it go down for 3 to 5 weeks. So typically somewhere in that range. Maybe it only has one more week down. Maybe it has a few more weeks down. And if so, there's the 20 moving average over here at around 82K if things were to get really bad. Going over to the daily, as far as that recent peak Bitcoin made, we were in this ascending channel, broke down under that channel, and Bitcoin has been testing that 50-day moving average. And what do you see now? It's breaking under it. So if Bitcoin keeps breaking under it, you might see it get some support at the 100-day moving average at around 85,000. And then the 200-day moving average is all the way down here at 76,000. And that's curious to me because that's somewhat in line with the March peak, a little bit above it. Maybe if it did get that bad, we might see a wick down to that former all-time high that was in March of this year. But this would be like absolute worst case scenario in my opinion. As Bitcoin gets down in these levels, I'm going to be taking a look and watching the altcoins that I've been dollar cost averaging into like a hawk, seeing if I can get any more discounted prices before the alt season, which is something I believe will happen. I believe we'll have a cycle high. We'll see. I'm hoping so. And if you do believe in that, if you're looking to make money off of crypto, then that might be part of your thesis to consider, is that, well, there's these times where altcoins get really high in price. It only happens over the course of a month. When we get there, you are going to be wishing you dollar cost average in at the discounts on the way up. And right now we are in one of those discounted phases. It's painful. We're no longer in extreme greed. Doesn't feel as good for people. That's exactly when you want to be looking to pounce at some of these deals. And as far as, let's take off this indicator here. This is the buy sell signal indicator I use. Let's go over to Bitcoin dominance. And Bitcoin dominance, you do see it is getting a little bit reddish. So not holding the 50 or the 100-day moving average, coming down towards the 200. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in Bitcoin dominance here. We have the price of Bitcoin falling, and we have Bitcoin dominance going down as well. So we have both those things happening. Are altcoins going up? Not really, as far as what I've seen. Lateral, I will say there are some that are sort of staying in place right now, but sometimes these charts I don't think they're quite perfect. And this is a very generalized way to look at it. Take it with a grain of salt. The big thing that matters is you want to see the rotation go down. And going over to that chart, what I'm talking about here is when we zoom out and take a look at the weekly, you can see here when there's this big rotation. This happened over the course of about 6 weeks. Bitcoin, the dominance went from 57% down to 41%. And here in 2017, we had that 4 strong weeks down. Same thing. It went all the way from 60% to 37%. So big rotation. When that happens, that's when the value of altcoins explode. Not that altcoins can't go up right now, though. So overall, we'll see what happens here, whether it is going to be getting ready to make another move up. And then you could see altcoins come down even further. So do keep that in the back of your mind. We'll take a look at Tether dominance as well as Ethereum. The reason Tether dominance is important, we'll zoom way out here on the weekly, is there's this trend line. Let's take off our moving averages too. There's this trend line around the bottoms that have signaled local tops. The 2017 top, the 2019 mid-cycle top, the top before COVID, the double top last cycle round, and then we had the pre-halving top, and then this one as well. If we go over to the rainbow chart, this is what I'm talking about. The 2017 top, the mid-cycle top, the top before COVID, the double top, the March top, and then the recent one you got right here. Maybe we'll call it the Fako top. I'm not sure yet what to name it. But whenever Tether dominance, Tether is a stable coin. It keeps a value of $1. Doesn't really go up or down at all. Whenever Tether dominance has hit this trend line, that has been close to local tops. Now, sometimes it can just ride that trend line like it did here in early 2021. That's when it had alt season. You want to see it sort of stay at that trend line. That's when the true top and alt season is. When it's just bouncing off of it, those tend to be local tops in the market. So it can go up for a little bit before coming back down. And then that's when we're sounding red alert and taking a look at, is this it? Is this time? But that can happen. Last cycle you saw, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 times this happened, and only once was it the true top. I wanted to also take a look at Ethereum and the Ethereum Bitcoin pair. So Ethereum to me is one of the most important pieces of alt season. And right now, Ethereum, it's just resting at, let's get this chart fixed a little bit. It's resting at the 786, which is good. And you can see Ethereum's in this massive wedge pattern. Broke above it a little bit, came back down, resting at the 786. Is Ethereum, which has a market cap of 400 billion, getting ready to explode? And some of the levels, as crazy as it sounds, that people have been talking about for Ethereum are over here at about the 1618 at around 7,300 and the 2618 at around 11,000. Keep that in mind. If Ethereum were to get up to 11,000, that's a 3x from here. We're talking 1.2 trillion. And with where Bitcoin is at right now, with the price of 92K, well, we can just take a look at coin market cap and see that right now Bitcoin, it was up to 2 trillion and now is at 1.9 trillion. So if we're going to see alt season, you want to see Ethereum's value against Bitcoin start to go up. And if Bitcoin is at 2 trillion, you want to see Ethereum to around 1 trillion in there. And the reason why, we'll get to that here in a second, is the Ethereum Bitcoin pair. We talked about Bitcoin dominance, sort of the shadow of Bitcoin dominance, or what moves opposite to it, is the Ethereum Bitcoin pair. And you will notice that when Ethereum Bitcoin bottomed, September 2019, that is exactly when Bitcoin dominance topped last cycle. You can see the date at the bottom, September 2019. And so there are some things to look for as far as is this bottoming? It could be. We can take a look at different indicators. Let's go to stochastic RSI. RSI means relative strength index, by the way. We might have to zoom out further here. If we take a look at the monthly on the stochastic RSI, what you notice, and this is, by the way, an indicator I use or a tool I use as a dollar cost average tool. I look at moving averages, I look at fib levels. This is another one when it's down here and flipping up. So right now you can see Ethereum Bitcoin on the stock RSI has been bottomed for a while. And when the blue gets above the orange, that's when we see a turnaround. Now, is this the true time that it's going to turn around? Maybe, I hope so. Because if we recently had a Bitcoin dominance peak and Ethereum Bitcoin bottom, just like it did here in September 2019, then we could see some massive movements upward. Now, remember what I was talking about with Ethereum having half the market cap of Bitcoin. The reason why is you can take a look at this trend line from these peaks, the 2017 cycle. I know there's a little bit of a wick above. If it's not a candle body, then you can call that a fake out. You can see these double tops. This throughout the year 2025 lands right about, you can see that ratio at the right, it's right about 0.51. Let's just say 0.5. So what that means is that wherever Bitcoin is, if Bitcoin is at a 3 trillion market cap worth 155K, then we would see Ethereum at 1.5 trillion if they were at the top and at the peak of Ethereum Bitcoin all at the same time. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly when it's going to happen. It doesn't have to at the peak. But remember, if Ethereum got to that 2618 fib and was worth 11K, and remember that number I said, $1.2 trillion if it did a 3x here? Well, what's double of 1.2 trillion? Well, that's 2.4 trillion. And if you're wondering where 2.4 trillion is, if you're curious about that, as far as Bitcoin price, how to calculate that. So just doing this on my own calculator here, you're going to have to trust me, bro, on this. But I'm just taking 2.4 divided by 1.89. Okay, 2.4 trillion divided by this. That's a ratio of 1.27. You multiply that times the price, and that is 95,567. That would have Bitcoin at around $121,000. What's curious about that number? Well, let's go back over to Bitcoin. We have this in our head. We can see that maybe Ethereum Bitcoin is getting ready to do a turnaround. Okay, great. What's important about the 121,000 mark? Well, we're going to add on an indicator here called the logarithmic regression. And I'm going to have to delete this fib. And by the way, I hope you see the 2618 here, 155K for Bitcoin. The 1618 that Bitcoin was just at was at 102K. And you can see no candle bodies close above it, just wicks. All right. We can get rid of the fib now so this doesn't look so messy. All right, cool. This logarithmic regression that's going up, this is pretty much the Bitcoin rainbow chart that we looked at before. Okay. We have these diminished returns. And by the way, when you're thinking, what the heck does logarithmic regression mean? Log scale goes up by factors of 10. That's why we go 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, so on and so forth. When it regresses, instead of it going up as fast at first, it starts to flatten out, which means there's diminished returns and less volatility, and the price can still go up. So do keep that in mind. So this indicator we're using is the log regression indicator. All right. Very similar, pretty much same thing as a rainbow chart. In 2017, it only got about halfway up. Maybe you could say 3/4 into these red, into the red band here. In 2021, here is alt season. It got about halfway to 3/4 up. All right, great. Remember that number I gave you, the 121K? Where is halfway up? Halfway up right now is at around 127K. Not too far off from the number where, remember what I said, if Ethereum had a market cap or was near its 2618 and had a market cap of 1.2 trillion, where would Bitcoin be? Around 2.4 trillion and 121K. So I'm just saying this as far as where we might see alt season. I've been thinking about this. Maybe we have to temper our expectations on where Bitcoin might be. Could Bitcoin get up to, let's go 3/4 up here. It's about 150K. Remember, that's where the 2618 was for Bitcoin at 150K. That's bothering me. Let's get rid of that. Could Bitcoin get up to its 2618? Sure, why not? But I'm not really concerned about that as much as I am where we are going to see Ethereum getting getting going up and getting that alt season like we were talking about. So I don't know when, if it's on the next pump up or if we're going to get something like this where we go sideways and down for a bit. I have a chart here that says that could happen. This is the average S&P return after inaugurations. You can see here about 100 days. That would be about 3-4 months after inaugurations that the markets on average go sideways or down a little bit. So if that's the case, we could see Bitcoin doing something like it did after March here. That would put us somewhere, what would be about 3-4 months out from there. In April, maybe we start to see it go up. So we'll see as far as how this next little downturn plays out, whether it's going to be a V reversal or if it's just going to chop and go down a little bit before going up again, another bull flag like this. But regardless of that, what we are looking for is Bitcoin. When it gets to these levels, that's when you need to be looking at possibly getting ready to pull profits. If you are waiting in altcoins and waiting for alt season. And as far as how that matches up on this rainbow chart, is there a difference? Well, where would 127K be? Or 121K, either one. Take a look at that light orange box. Could Bitcoin only get up into this light orange box this time around? That'd be quite a fall. And you can see here, Bitcoin, it was in this red band, kind of near the top. But then the peak, where was the actual peak? It was about 2 bands down. And so thinking about it from that perspective, if Bitcoin only was able to get about 2 bands down and was at the lower end of that light orange band, then it might be at that level, that 123K, give or take. Again, it doesn't really matter. It might be at that level that we need where Ethereum could get to that 2618. What I am looking for, to be clear again, is Ethereum to start ripping up against Bitcoin. Let's get rid of this a lot. This is too much going on here. All right. What I'm looking for, again, is to see Ethereum start ripping up against Bitcoin. That is the whole point of Ethereum Bitcoin. I want to spend more time talking about this today because I try to give you all different stuff each time we do these videos. We want to see this ratio start climbing if this is truly the bottom. Okay? Because remember, ETH Bitcoin is the shadow, the antithesis of Bitcoin dominance. Now, one thing I talked about in my recent live stream is how if you take a look at from when Ethereum Bitcoin bottomed to where alt season was, and it was over here in May, early May, that's when it ended. That was, this is going to freak some of you out, but stick with me. That was about 600 days. Can some of you wait a year and a half for alt season? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. And the reason why is look at how low Ethereum Bitcoin was compared to how high I had to get. This is about half that amount. Okay, not even. You can see here when we had alt season, it was early May. Where's that candle around right here? Climbed about 330%. All right. If this is truly the bottom, you can see it doesn't even have to climb half as much. And so if that's the case, maybe it only takes half as long. I'm just drawing a comparison there. Maybe it only takes roughly 300 days. Look where that puts us at the bottom. You can see September of 2025. Okay, and that's just comparing ratios. Half the strength of the movement, half the time. It doesn't mean it has to take half the time it could take a quarter of the time. It could take 600 days. I don't know. I don't care. Have your strategy be more important than your predictions. Again, I can show you all the different predictions in the world as far as, we've been talking about this. If you take the average amount of days from a new all-time high to the peak, it's about 300 days, which puts us right now. Is this the peak? I don't think so. If you take the average from every cycle bottom to its next peak, that puts us around March of next year. Is that the top? I don't know. If you take the average from every halving to the next peak, that puts us out in August of next year. That kind of lines up with the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio average we just did. So just something to consider. Something to consider is that a lot of people recently, every time we get these spikes, and it happened here in March, are we getting an early top in the summer of 2024? Well, that didn't happen. This recent top. Are we getting an early alt season? That was the narrative out there, where the 4-year cycle is going to be from here, and alt season is going to be in Q1, Q2 of 2025. Is that going to happen? Maybe. I would contend, though, and Bitcoin dominance can fall off a cliff very fast, but I would contend that just by taking a look at Ethereum, Bitcoin, and sure, it could just go straight up real quick. Who knows? But if it truly just bottomed, remember, this took 600 days. I'm not convinced that it can go up in, let's just say we do have a 4-year cycle from April. Where would that put us? 140 days? So what that would be saying is that this move here that took 600 days, that we are going to make half the strength of movement in a quarter of the time. So stuff would have to start ripping up really soon. Can that happen? Sure. I don't know, but I am ready to withdraw my money when Bitcoin dominance is going down, when Ethereum Bitcoin is ripping up, when we are in the orange zones of the Bitcoin rainbow chart, or on Bitcoin when we are in that log regression. I just showed you this before. When we are in the log regression, I'm just sharing with you my plan, by the way. When Bitcoin's getting up here, 126K, it might go higher. Again, last 2 cycles, it got to this midline to 3/4 of the way up. So if Bitcoin's getting 126, 155K, I don't know. I don't care. I'm looking for when are my altcoins going to be moving. That's part of my plan. Bitcoin dominance, when is this breaking down? I've taken a look at this from different indicators. Right now, the stochastic RSI, you can see on the weekly, it's kind of bottom. What does this show on the monthly? On the monthly, okay, this is kind of a bullish signal that if the stochastic RSI on the monthly, if this is truly starting to break down, okay, might that line up with the Bitcoin dominance rotation? But you can see here when it did start to break down, similar levels. Where was it? Kind of similar to what was going on. That's February 2020. So the bottom, by the way, the bottom of Bitcoin dominance was a year later, give or take a month, because it was in March, April. Okay. If we're in a similar area here, and I hope you see what I'm doing, when the blue line's crossing down into the shaded area, okay, February of 2020. The very bottom, it wasn't here. It was down here. A little bit of a fake out there. It wasn't June. It was April. April was truly alt season into early May. That's when alts exploded. Okay. That was a year later. And so if alt season's a year later from now, that lines up with the 4-year cycle. And guys, you might be saying to yourself, well, this guy just said September. He said maybe March. Again, I don't know. I don't care. What matters is having a strategy that defeats any of these predictions. I don't care when this happens. I care about making money. I don't care how many of these dips we're going to get. I'm going to be looking at dollar cost averaging and harder, accumulating during these dips. What do I say at the start of every video? Look for value in the markets when there's fear. Fear has been coming in. People are feeling disheartened. And if you are still watching crypto videos, whether mine or others, and you're still watching the charts, you're still paying attention, then you will be getting better returns than all the retail dumb money. That's not my term, that's what they say. That only comes in at the top. The friends and family who talk about crypto, I only hear them talking about it within a month of the top every single time. It's the only time I hear them talking about crypto. The only times friends have reached out about crypto have been these 5 points. Okay. Recently, last March, the double top in here. You, the people watching this video, you're smarter. You're paying attention when it's not a euphoric time. You are getting better deals. And if you believe in alt season, then part of your thesis is to accumulate during these down times. This is another indicator I like. I like it more on the weekly. This is the ultimate RSI, and this one's just starting to break down. Okay, but again, when it first started to break down, look at where that was. We just talked about this, and this lines up with the stochastic RSI. Not February, but January. Okay, so might alt season be a year away? I'll just say this. My base case, what I'm looking for, I'm just going to give a range. My gut says, by what the data is showing me, is that I would be expecting alt season 9 months to a year from now, maybe 6 months, but I'll say, generally speaking, my range, and again, I don't care about the prediction or if this is right. It could be 15 months from now, it doesn't matter. But that's what these charts are telling me. If we're taking what's happened before with Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin dominance, and we're translating that forward, that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? All of which are okay. Be constructive in your feedback, please, because I want us to help each other learn and gain knowledge from one another. Because, like I said, when the peaks are here, you don't have long. And please take this recent pump, as well as the March pump, please take that as a teachable moment. That is what happens when we get into alt season. However, it's even crazier. It is. You see how little these moves are? If you haven't been around in 2021 or 2017, when those spikes happen, it is 3 times stronger than what we just got. It can be very hard to think. So again, try to have a plan and stick strictly to your plan for when the time comes. These times are meant to prepare you and test you. Will you be able to withdraw? Do you have price targets? At what price target are you going to withdraw? At what part of the market will you withdraw? Remember what I said. I'm looking, when Bitcoin's in the orange zone, to me, it's 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. At any moment, I am being ready to withdraw, whether or not my price targets hit, or I'm looking for the Bitcoin dominance rollover, Ethereum, Bitcoin to kick up. I'm looking at all those factors. Now is the time to be prepared and be ready. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful Monday. Take care.